The first time Vincent Jarrow saw her, she was standing barefoot in the rain, mascara streaked down her cheeks, holding a pair of broken heels in one hand and crying like her whole world had just collapsed. He had no idea that moment him, a broke single dad with a 6-year-old son and a phone hanging on by duct tape, would change his life forever. "Hey, are you okay?" Vincent asked, adjusting the hood of his worn-out hoodie and pulling his son Kellen a little closer under the awning of the coffee shop. The woman looked up, startled, her eyes red and frantic. "I left my phone in the cab, my driver I don't know where he went. I need to call someone, please." Without thinking twice, Vincent handed over his cracked phone. "It's not much, but it works." She blinked at him. "You sure?" He gave a half-smile. "I've been through worse, go ahead." She took it with shaking hands, dialing a number quickly. Her voice trembled as she spoke, pacing back and forth under the awning. Vincent tried not to eavesdrop, but it was hard not to hear. "No, I'm not going back there. He can keep the damn ring. I don't care if the press finds out. I'm done, okay?" She hung up and stood still for a second, staring at the phone in her hand like she didn't know what to do next. Then she looked at Vincent. "Thank you, seriously. I didn't know what to do." Vincent offered a shrug. "You did fine, you're safe now." She looked down at Kellen, who was clinging to Vincent's leg and peeking up at her with wide eyes. "You're a dad?" she asked. "Yeah, that's Kellen." He ruffled his son's damp curls. "We were just grabbing cocoa before heading back to our apartment." She hesitated. May I buy you both something warm?" Vincent shook his head. "That's kind, but we're good. Just glad you're okay." Her eyes narrowed, studying him. "You're not good. Your shoes are soaked through, your jacket's too thin, and your kid's shivering." He blinked, caught off guard. "I'm sorry," she added quickly. "That sounded rude. I notice things. I know what it's like to be stuck." Vincent chuckled, brushing it off. "It's okay. Life's been a little rough lately, yeah." She turned toward the coffee shop door. "Come on, let me at least buy you something. Please, I owe you." Inside, the heaters blasted warm air, and the smell of espresso and cinnamon filled the air. They sat at a corner booth. She ordered hot chocolates for all three of them and a croissant for Kellen that he devoured like he'd never eaten one before. "I'm Nova," she said after a few minutes of silence. Vincent nodded. Vincent Jarrow." They shook hands, and for a second, her fingers lingered in his. She looked at him like she was trying to figure out a puzzle. "I'm sorry you saw me like that," she said softly. "I'm not," he replied. I'm sorry you're upset, but if you hadn't needed a phone, I wouldn't have met you." Nova's eyes flickered with something he couldn't quite place. "You're different." "Different how?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You didn't ask who I was." He tilted his head. "Should I have?" There was a pause. Most people do. Kellen tugged on Vincent's sleeve. "Daddy, can we take the croissant home for later?" Vincent nodded, reaching into his pocket for the crumpled napkin to wrap it in. Nova gently took it from him. "I'll get it boxed," she said, standing. As she walked to the counter, Vincent sighed. This was the most human interaction he'd had with an adult woman in months. His life was work, daycare, and trying to stretch groceries for as long as he could. When she came back, she handed Kellen a pastry box and then sat down across from Vincent again. "Where do you live?" she asked suddenly. He hesitated. "A couple blocks from here." "Is it safe?" she pressed. "It's affordable." Her jaw tightened. "Vincent, I know we just met, but would you let me do something crazy?" He raised an eyebrow. "Like?" "Help you. You helped me when you didn't have to. And I don't just mean with your phone. You didn't treat me like I was a problem." "You don't owe me anything, Nova." She smiled. I know, that's why I want to. There was something intense in her eyes, not pity, conviction. He leaned back. What do you do exactly? She hesitated, then said, I invest. In people, companies, things that matter. My family owns a real estate group. I'm not trying to impress you, but I want you to know I can do what I'm about to say. He blinked, which is? I want to buy you a house. Vincent stared at her like she'd just spoken a different language. I'm sorry, what? A house, something livable, safe, for you and Kellen. He shook his head. Nova, I can't let you. You can, she said. And you will, because I'm not giving you a handout. I'm giving you a fresh start. He looked at Kellen, who was quietly drawing stick figures in the condensation on the window, then back at her. Why would you do this? She reached across the table and touched his hand. Because you made me feel human again, and I want you to know what it feels like to breathe easy. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally, if I say yes, I won't be able to repay you. She smiled. You already did. And just like that, everything began to shift. Vincent stood at the edge of the cracked sidewalk, staring up at the narrow duplex that now had his name on the mailbox. The key in his hand felt heavier than it should have. Kellen tugged his sleeve, already bouncing with excitement. Is it really ours? Kellen asked, his voice breathless. Vincent looked down at him. Yeah, kiddo, it's ours. He still hadn't fully wrapped his mind around how fast things had moved. Nova hadn't just helped, she'd orchestrated everything like it was second nature. A quick visit to a local real estate agent she knew, a tour of a few modest homes, and suddenly they were signing paperwork. She didn't flinch once, didn't hesitate, and she never acted like she was doing charity. Vincent unlocked the door and let Kellen run inside, his small footsteps echoing off the freshly painted walls. The place smelled clean, like lemon polish and new beginnings. There was furniture sturdy, simple, functional. A two-seater couch, a coffee table, a twin bed already made up for Kellen in the smaller bedroom, and a full-size bed in the other room. Nova had left before they arrived. She said she had a meeting, but not before handing Vincent an envelope with a note that just said, "The fridge is stocked. Call me if you need anything." For the first hour, Vincent walked through the house in silence, opening cabinets, inspecting light switches, checking the locks. He'd never owned anything like this, not even close. Every corner of the place felt like it was waiting for him to believe it was real. That evening, after Kellen had fallen asleep curled up with the blanket Nova had personally picked out, Vincent sat on the back steps, staring at the narrow strip of grass that passed for a yard. He didn't hear Nova approach until she sat beside him, setting a paper bag between them. "You didn't call me," she said. He glanced at her, didn't know what to say. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to see how you were settling in." He nodded toward the house. "He's already claimed the bigger closet." She laughed, and it was the first time he saw her really laugh. Not the polite kind, but something genuine that caught her off guard. "I'm glad," she said, her smile softening. "I hoped he'd feel safe here." Vincent looked at her carefully. "You do this often, buy people houses." "No," she said, "just you." The words hung in the air, heavier than the warmth between them. "I've been trying to figure out what your angle is," he admitted. "Not because I don't trust you. I don't understand why someone like you would do all this." She didn't look offended. Instead, she glanced up at the night sky. "Have you ever been on the inside of something so perfect it felt suffocating?" He shook his head. "No, I've been on the outside of a lot of things, though." "My life is beautiful from a distance," she said. "But every time I had a choice, it was made for me. Who I dated, who I almost married, what causes I supported, what events I attended. I never got to choose anything that felt real." "So you walked out." "I ran," she corrected. "And then I met you. You didn't ask me what I could give you. You didn't want anything from me. He looked at her sideways. You say that like it's rare. It is. They sat in silence for a moment. Then she reached into the paper bag and handed him a wrapped sandwich. You haven't eaten, she said, not asking. Vincent unwrapped it, surprised to find it was exactly what he would have ordered himself. Roast beef, mustard pickles, how'd you know? I asked Kellen. He laughed under his breath. Of course you did. I figured if I could win over the tougher one first, I'd have a shot. Vincent looked at her, sandwich halfway to his mouth. A shot at what? She didn't back down from the question. You. The silence that followed was different this time. It wasn't awkward. It was heavy with the weight of something beginning. I'm not good at this, he admitted. I'm not expecting good, she said. Just honest. He took a bite, chewing slowly. I haven't let anyone in since Kellen's mom left. Not really. I was barely keeping things together. But you still handed me your phone. I didn't think about it. You looked like you needed someone. Nova turned toward him fully. So do you. He lowered the sandwich, meeting her eyes. You don't have to try to fix me. I'm not trying to fix you, she said. I'm trying to know you, that's different. Vincent sat back, resting his elbows on his knees. You move fast. I've lost too much time pretending, didn't want things, she replied. I'm done being careful. He studied her in the soft light from the kitchen window. Her hair was pulled back, no makeup, no designer coat, just a sweatshirt and jeans. She looked like someone who had stepped off a pedestal and was determined to never climb back on. You really want to be here? He asked. On these creaky steps, in this backyard, with some guy who's still figuring out how to breathe again. She nodded once. Yeah, I really do. He nodded slowly, more to himself than to her. Then maybe I can figure it out with you. This time, when she smiled, it reached all the way to her eyes. Vincent pulled into the elementary school parking lot just as the afternoon bell rang. The car, a used but clean sedan Nova had insisted on helping him finance, idled softly as he waited for Kellen to appear among the cluster of kids pouring out of the building. He spotted him quickly, backpack bouncing, his hair a mess from whatever chaos had taken place at recess. Hey, buddy, Vincent said as Kellen climbed into the back seat. Nova's coming over, right? Kellen asked, buckling in. Vincent glanced in the rearview mirror. She said she'd stop by after her meeting, yeah. Kellen grinned and dug into his lunchbox for the leftover apple slices. I told Mrs. Hadley that Nova knows how to make real waffles, not the frozen kind. Vincent chuckled. You're really selling her hard. She's cool, Kellen said matter-of-factly. You like her, don't you? Vincent hesitated before answering. Yeah, I do. Back at the house, Vincent helped Kellen with his spelling words while dinner simmered on the stove. The place felt lived in now. There were drawings on the fridge, a laundry basket by the door, and a pair of tiny sneakers left in the hallway. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Nova arrived just after sunset, letting herself in with the spare key Vincent had given her 2 days earlier. You smell like garlic and ambition, she said as she walked into the kitchen, dropping her bag onto the counter. Vincent turned from the stove. Trying my hand at pasta, minimal disasters so far. She peeked into the pot. It's not boiling over, that's a win. Kellen ran in from the living room. Nova, guess what? I got all my spelling words right. Nova knelt down and held out her palms. High five for the genius. He slapped her hands enthusiastically, then grabbed her wrist and dragged her toward his room to show off a new drawing. Vincent watched them go, something warm unfurling in his chest. 20 minutes later, Kellen was tucked in, and the house was quiet except for the low hum of the dishwasher. Nova sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea while Vincent leaned against the counter, arms folded. "Tell me something you never tell anyone," she said suddenly. He raised an eyebrow. "That's not a small ask." "I don't do small," she replied. He considered. "When I was a teenager, I wanted to be a chef. Used to check out cookbooks from the library and try to recreate stuff with whatever we had in the fridge. Usually didn't go great." Nova smiled. "That actually makes sense. You're good in the kitchen." "I've had years of practice making dollar store spaghetti taste edible." She leaned back in her chair. "You ever think about doing something with it, like actually pursuing it?" "Only when I'm not worrying about bills, or if Kellen's outgrown his shoes again." She nodded slowly. "What if you didn't have to worry about those things?" He narrowed his eyes slightly. "Nova." "I'm not saying let me bankroll your dreams," she said. "But if you wanted to take a few courses, or get certified, whatever it is, there's a culinary program at the community center downtown." I looked it up. Vincent stared at her. "You looked it up?" "I did." He walked over and sat across from her. "You've done enough already." "I don't see a finish line, Vincent. I'm not doing any of this to hit some quota of good deeds and tap out." "So what are you doing?" She met his gaze, unflinching. "Trying to build something." He sat with that for a long moment. Then, "I don't want to be someone who just takes." "You're not," she said. "You're someone who's finally getting what he deserves." He didn't know what to say to that. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thin envelope. "I wasn't going to give you this tonight, but since we're already in deep waters." He opened it carefully. Inside was a gift certificate for a 6-week culinary course at the center she'd mentioned. "First class is next Monday," she said. "Already arranged for a sitter Kellen's teacher recommended her." Vincent looked up sharply. "You talked to his teacher?" "She called me yesterday about the spring fundraiser. Apparently, Kellen mentioned me a lot." He ran a hand down his face. "You really do move fast." Nova's voice softened. "You could slow me down if you wanted." He stared at her, heart pounding. "Why me?" She didn't hesitate. "Because you make me feel like I'm not performing. Because you never try to impress me, and yet you do. Because the way you love your son makes me want to trust again." Vincent pushed back from the table and stood. "Come here." She rose, stepping into his arms like she belonged there. He held her close, grounding himself in the warmth of her. "I don't know what I'm doing," he said quietly. "Neither do I," she whispered, "but maybe we can figure it out together." He kissed her then, not tentative, not hesitant, like a man who had spent years holding his breath and finally remembered how to exhale. When they pulled apart, Nova rested her forehead against his. "I never thought I'd fall in love in a kitchen with garlic-scented air and a broken dishwasher humming in the background," she said. Vincent smiled. "You're in love." She nodded. "I think I started the moment you didn't ask who I was." His fingers brushed her cheek. "Then maybe it's my turn." "For what?" "To do something crazy." She tilted her head. "What kind of crazy?" He took her hand and pressed it to his chest. "The kind where I stop pretending this is temporary." Nova's breath hitched. "Say it." "I love you," he said, "and I don't want you to go back to your world. I want you in this one, with me, with him." She didn't say anything, just kissed him again, with everything she had. And outside, the wind shifted, as if the whole world had just changed direction. Vincent stood beside Nova at the edge of the rooftop, his hand wrapped around hers, both of them watching the city glow beneath the setting sun. The evening breeze played with a few strands of her hair, and she turned slightly, her gaze meeting his not with uncertainty, but with the kind of quiet certainty that only came after surviving what felt like a lifetime in a few short months. "I never thought I'd feel grounded above the ground," he said. Nova rested her head against his shoulder. That's because you were never given anything stable, until now. He exhaled through his nose, not as a sigh, but as if letting go of something invisible, and rolled. She looked up, the culinary program. He nodded. Starts Tuesday. I met the instructor this morning, said my experience raising a kid on pantry scraps might give me an edge. Nova laughed softly. I hope he knows what he's in for. I told him I once made lasagna with tortillas and cottage cheese. Did he run? He asked for the recipe. She leaned into him. It's still hard for you to say yes to things, isn't it? I've spent so long surviving that I didn't even know what yes felt like. But you make me want to say it every day. Nova didn't speak for a long moment. The air between them shifted again, heavier now, not with tension, but with the weight of a new beginning. There's something I want to show you, she said finally. Vincent followed her as she led him across the rooftop toward a table set with linen, silverware that looked like it belonged in a museum, and 2 flickering candles. A waiter in a black vest and gloves stepped forward from the shadows and pulled out a chair without a word. Vincent turned to her slowly. You planned this. I made a few calls. We're above the restaurant my parents used to take me to when I was a kid. I always hated it, felt like I had to act a certain way, speak a certain way. But up here, there's no script. He lowered himself into the seat, still trying to process the transition from roof access door to private fine dining under the stars. You ever get tired of surprising me? He asked. I haven't even started. Their meals arrived duck confit for her, seared scallops for him, both plated so beautifully it felt criminal to touch. But they did, and between bites, the world outside the rooftop melted away. I told my father about you, Nova said, her voice even. Vincent paused. What'd he say? That I was being reckless. That I was choosing a life of complication over comfort. Vincent wiped his mouth with the corner of his napkin. And what did you say? That I was finally comfortable. He reached across the table, took her hand again. You don't owe them your peace. I know, but I think I needed to hear myself say it out loud, to him, to you. She squeezed his fingers. I choose this. I choose you. I don't have anything to offer you that comes with a title or a corporate ladder, he said. You have something better, she answered. You have truth, you have heart, and you gave me a place to land when the rest of my world was falling apart. The waiter returned with dessert chocolate soufflé and a tiny dish of strawberries, but Nova barely acknowledged it. She stood instead, reaching into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. Vincent's brow furrowed. What's that? She opened it slowly, revealing a simple platinum band. I know the world expects the man to ask, she said, but the world hasn't met us. He stood stunned. Nova. I want a life with you, not just a house, not just a moment. I want the hard days, the messy mornings, the nights when the power goes out and we have to eat cereal by flashlight. I want Kellen's school plays and burnt toast and arguments over which movie to watch. I want everything. He stared at her, his heart thundering. You're serious. As serious as a woman who's never been more sure of anything. He stepped closer, his voice low. Then let me do it properly. She blinked. What? He took the ring from her hand, dropped to one knee, and looked up at her the way he'd only ever looked at Kellen before, with full, irrevocable love. Nova Hart, you walked into my life on a stormy afternoon and gave me something I didn't know I was allowed to want. You didn't just change my life. You gave it back to me. Will you marry me? She nodded, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. Already said yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, stood, and kissed her like the world had stopped turning. Because for him, it had. Later that week, they stood in front of a modest courthouse, hand in hand. Kellen wore a button-up 2 sizes too big, and Nova wore a soft cream blouse and jeans. No photographers, no press. Just them, a few close friends, and the sound of their hearts sinking in real time. "I never thought my wedding would be this small," Nova whispered. Vincent leaned in. "I never thought I'd have one." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Kellen threw both hands in the air and shouted, "Now can we get waffles?" Everyone laughed, and Nova grabbed Vincent's hand. "We should frame that." They didn't host a gala. Instead, they went home, changed into pajamas, and danced barefoot in their kitchen while waffles crisped in the iron. There was no orchestra, just the hum of their new life unfolding. Vincent turned to Nova as Kellen fell asleep on the couch beside them. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For coming undone in front of me, for letting me be the one to catch you." She rested her head against his chest. "I didn't fall, Vincent. I found where I belonged." And as the night deepened around them, the stars above the little house blinked softly, as if the universe had finally exhaled too. The kitchen was buzzing with quiet energy as Vincent flipped a golden pancake onto a plate, the scent of nutmeg and vanilla curling around the room. Kellen sat at the table, coloring in a workbook, his tongue peeking out at the corner of his mouth in concentration. Nova stood by the window, barefoot, holding a mug of tea with both hands as sunlight poured across her face. The silence was the good kind, full of comfort and companionship. It had been 3 months since the courthouse ceremony, and though their life wasn't the kind people wrote headlines about, it was real. Nova turned from the window. "You know what today is, right?" Vincent glanced over. "Monday." She raised an eyebrow. "Try again." He paused, then his eyes widened slightly. "Wait." "The day your final project goes before the culinary board," she said. "You didn't forget." "I didn't forget," he replied, bringing the plate over to the table. "I just didn't want to jinx it." Kellen looked up. "Is that the thing with the judges and the fancy plates?" "Yep," Vincent said. "And if they like it, I get certified and officially graduate." Nova set her mug on the counter. "Then you're going to need a proper jacket. The one you've got has a coffee stain and a missing button." Vincent grinned. "You say that like it's not part of my charm." "I say that like I already bought you another one," she said, walking over to the hall closet and pulling out a garment bag. "It's waiting for you." He opened it carefully, his expression shifting as he took in the crisp white chef's jacket with his name embroidered in deep navy thread. "You did this?" he asked. "I wanted you to feel like the man you already are." He reached out and tugged her gently toward him. "You make it really hard to keep my head on straight." "You won't need your head," she said. "Just your heart. That's what makes your food better than anyone else's." Hours later, Nova sat in the back row of a small auditorium, watching as Vincent stood before the panel of instructors and local chefs. He moved with quiet confidence, plating his dish with steady hands and a presence that commanded attention without trying. When the head instructor called his name and announced his certification had been approved with distinction, Nova felt her chest tighten, not from nerves, but from pride. He caught her eye across the room, and his smile said everything. Afterward, they walked through the community center courtyard, hand in hand. Kellen ran ahead, chasing a butterfly with a stick he'd found by the fountain. "I got a call this morning," Nova said, her voice casual. Vincent looked at her. "From who?" "The manager of the old cafe near the park. Apparently, they're looking for a chef to help rebrand the menu. Someone local, someone with heart." He stopped walking. "You didn't." "I didn't say anything yet," she replied, "but I might have sent in a resume. Yours." He laughed under his breath, shaking his head. "You're relentless." "I believe in you," she said, "and I think it's time the city got a taste of what I get every night." He pulled her toward him, kissing her forehead. If they hire me, I'll name a dish after you. I want something dramatic, she said, like Nova's reckless risotto. I was leaning toward waffles and wild decisions. She laughed so hard she had to lean into him for balance. That sounds about right. The cafe offer came 2 days later. Vincent accepted. Within a week, he was in the kitchen, experimenting with flavors and surprising even himself with how natural it felt to be in a space where his ideas mattered. Nova watched him thrive, but she wasn't just a spectator. She took meetings for local outreach programs, helped Kellen with science projects, and started writing again, something she hadn't done since college. Her first op-ed was published in a regional paper, an unflinching piece titled, "Choosing a Life That Chooses You Back." One evening, as they stood in the backyard under a string of lights, Vincent had hung himself. Kellen asleep inside and the stars scattered above. Nova turned to him. "We could have missed each other," she said. He nodded, but we didn't. I think about that sometimes, how close we came to living whole lives without ever finding this. He wrapped his arms around her waist. That's the part that scares me most. What if I'd walked past you that day? You didn't. No, he said. I didn't, because something told me to stop. They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in quiet and each other. Months passed, and their lives didn't get louder, they got deeper. Kellen finished the school year with a certificate for Most Inquisitive, and Vincent's cafe quickly gained a neighborhood following. Locals came for the food, but stayed for the warmth that somehow infused every corner of the space. One evening, Vincent came home with flour on his cheek and a spark in his eye. I bought something, he said. Nova raised an eyebrow. Do I need to worry? Only about how soon you can pack. He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a reservation for a cabin by the lake, tucked in the mountains, for a week in July, just the three of them. You've been holding everyone together, he said. Let me hold you for a while. When they arrived at the cabin, nestled among pines and facing still blue water, Nova stood on the porch and looked out over the view. I didn't know you could find peace like this, she said. You didn't find it, Vincent said, stepping behind her. You built it. Their days were filled with swimming, laughter, and pancakes cooked over a campfire. Kellen caught frogs and named them after planets. At night, they sat by the fire wrapped in one blanket, and Nova read aloud from old books, her voice soft under the stars. On their last night, Vincent handed her a small box. Inside was a locket, simple and gold, with a tiny photo of the three of them tucked inside. I wanted something you could wear that holds all your worlds in one place, he said. She traced the edges of the locket. You already do that. And then she kissed him, slow and full, like she had all the time in the world because now she did. They didn't need the world's approval or applause or its idea of perfection. All they needed was what they'd already found. A love shaped by choice, by grit, and by the quiet, extraordinary power of showing up again and again for each other. And they did. Every single day.